Hey fellas, hope you guys doing great. In today's video we will see, what if Naruto got betrayed and became the Red X with an Ancient Jutsu in Teen Titans, Part 1. Huge shout out to 26 Lord Pain for this story. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe and like the video. So let's start the story. Jump City, California. A silent figure jumps from roof to roof, heading towards the docks at the south end of town. The figure soon jumps off of the closest roof and lands before a single warehouse with a large L on the front and mentally rolls his eyes. Holding out a single hand, a red X-shaped object flies forward and attaches to the front of door. The X begins to spark before vanishing, and the tumblers on the door slowly line into place. Quickly lunging forward, the figure places his hands into the crack between the doors and pulls them open, only to quickly rush in when he saw someone coming towards him. Looks like the silent alarm went off. It's simple, there's good and there's evil. There are those who commit crimes, and those who stop them. The Teen Titans had just arrived to investigating a silent alarm at the LexCorp warehouse at the docks of Jump City. They got there just in time to see a black-clad figure slip in through a partially open door. The group quickly exited the T-car in order to give chase. Entering the building, the cyborg on the team activates his flashlight so they could see, only to view a black object turn down a corner, the night watchman left unconscious at his desk. There are those who commit crimes, and those who stop them. As they chased the strangely familiar figure, they noticed he made not a single sound. Even the Green Titan in dog form could hear either a footstep nor a breath. They do hear a strange noise as they get closer to the elevator, however. Once they arrive at the elevator, they see an open grate on the ground and look just in time to see the figure fly up the shaft of the elevator by holding onto a grappling line. The two sides are opposite, as different as night and day. The Teen Titans quickly fly up the shaft, one being carried by a teammate, another using a grapple of his own, the next floating up quickly, the last forming into a bird to rise up as well. The thief has made it far, however, and crouches down to place one last mirror down, deflecting a net of them back into the wall. The thief quickly rushes past the lasers, and he smirks hearing the Titans following him, yet continues forward, and turns down another damn hall. The line between them is perfectly clear. Or at least, it's supposed to be. Exiting the last hall, the figure tosses another static X at a control panel beside a door, and it opens, allowing him to run into a large room with numerous boxes. However, the figure stops when he hears a shocked gasp from behind him and turns around to view the now shocked Teen Titans. Now what was revealed to them was someone they had thought they would never see again. He wore a black skin-tight suit with a black ragged cape flaring behind him, a jagged red X over his chest. Over his hands he wears a pair of gray gloves with a red X on each palm. Around his waist is an ash-gray belt with the compartments on the sides completely smoothed down, steel soles on the bottoms of his black boots. While covering his face is a full face mask that also covers his entire head. A white gothic metal skull that had no lower jaw covers the front of his mask, while over the right eye a jagged red X came over it, while the rest of his mask is black. Red X? I thought Robin was Red X. The green-skinned shapeshifter known as Beast Boy to friend and foe alike says out loud, only for the one in front of them to aim the palms of his gloves towards them before speaking. Think again, he says, firing X shurikens from his gloves. Titans, go! Robin shouts as the X's hit the ground and stick to the ground like shuriken, causing everyone but Raven to scatter. The Dark Titan floats forward a bit before erecting a shield around her to stop the exploding devices from hitting her. As the shield lowers, she looks to her right only to see X charging right at her. She brings up another black shield in front of her, only for him to jump up and teleport behind her and knocks her to the ground with a sweeping kick. Once she is on the ground, he pulls out another X shuriken and unfolds it, only for it to be blown out of his hand by Starfire as she starts to throw her star bolts at him. He jumps to avoid the bolts and ends up against the wall, sticking there with chakra for a single second. He then jumps off and uses her back as a stepping stone on his way to the steel girders that are only a few feet from the ceiling, with her now hot on his trail. The girl then begins firing at him rapidly only to miss as he jumps from one girder to another. Suddenly, he turns in midair to fire red beams of energy from his hands that hit the side of two vertical girders. while she is flying in between the two only for them to ricochet in an X pattern, hitting her and shocking her to the ground as he lands in the junction between a vertical and horizontal girder. Just as he catches his breath, a green pterodactyl that he assumes is Beast Boy flies up behind him and charges at him before turning into an equally green orangutan that roars at the thief, only to get a red X shoved into his open jaws, forcing them to stay open. Struggling for a few seconds with the X, BB soon solves the problem, as he turns into a hippo and the X falls out of his mouth. Only for the shapeshifter to look down and realize that he turned into an incredibly heavy animal on top of a very thin piece of metal. He looks down wide-eyed just as the girder he is on splits underneath his weight. Red X, having jumped off of the girder after placing the trap in Beast Boy's mouth, lands on the ground with a smirk underneath his mask as he watches the green hippo fall into a pile of boxes behind him. Hearing heavy footstep in front of him, he looks up to see Cyborg running at him. He holds out his left hand and launches another X at the metal team, wanting to use a static X. However, this one stops right in front of the cybernetic teen and expands. The ends reach out to stick to 4 boxes before pulling back like elastic, crashing the boxes into him. X manages to blink in surprise seeing this, and then inwardly wonders what the hell he did wrong before smirking. One left. He thinks to himself, then corrects himself as he sees Starfire, Beast Boy, Raven and Cyborg all get out of the predicaments that he put them in and surround him to attack. Someone sure has a chip on their shoulder. The thief thinks as Cyborg literally pushes a chip of wood off his shoulder, making the thief chuckle in his throat. He then quickly crouches down as they start to close in, and the thief points to the X on his chest as he tells them all, "Come on, kids!" X marks the spot. Just before jumping up to avoid a blast from Cyborg's sonic blaster, landing on a crate that Raven was preparing to throw at him, and jumped up again, avoiding another few star bolts from Starfire, only to land with his back to Beast Boy in a different gorilla form. He hits the teleporter built into the belt just as he is about to get crushed by a pair of large hairy fists. Puzzled at his sudden disappearance, Beast Boy shrugs his huge shoulders at Starfire and Raven, who are floating behind him. Red X reappears behind them all on a large pile of crates, only to be tackled by the traffic light, otherwise known as Robin. They tumble together for a minute before rolling onto their feet, from where Robin throws a birdarang at X, only for the thief to teleport out of the way of the odd-shaped shuriken. The birdarang quickly returns to Robin, while X suddenly appears behind him and attempts a right hook only for the younger boy to dodge and drop to the floor. Robin then quickly brings his legs up to kick, only for X to stop the kick with one hand, then fling himself back off of the steel-plated boots and behind the boy. Robin then snarls before quickly running towards X, with a punch aimed at the taller teen's head. X dodges the attack with lightning-fast reflexes before then catching the next punch and flips into the air. Bringing a foot down onto the Titan, X is surprised by his strength when Robin manages to catch the attack. The black-clothed thief is then thrown across the room and lands against a wall, groaning slightly in pain. Before he can even think to get up, however, Robin has descended on him and holds his head down with one arm, while X glares at him through his masked eyes. "Who are you?" Robin demands of the criminal before him, narrowing his eyes in suspicion. "If I wanted you to know that, would I be wearing a mask?" X says before grabbing Robin's arm and using a shocker built into the glove's palms. Robin shouts in pain as electricity courses through his body before then punching him hard enough to knock him back a few good feet into some boxes. Raven and Cyborg dash out from behind said boxes and charge at him, only for the cunning thief to launch another X at them as Raven begins to chant at the same time that Cyborg readies his sonic cannon to fire. Before either can attack, however, X sends another static X forward towards the two. The weapon sends out an electrical charge, which is sent through both Titans, causing them to hit one another with their attacks instead of the thief. "Looks like you got your wires crossed," he says jokingly before jumping back to avoid a bolt from Starfire and then jumping to avoid the starbolt. He can't help but idly wonder if all she could do was fling those stupid balls of energy. That is before he put his hands together and launched a large X that hits the girl, sending her flying to a wall where it captures her. He then teleports over to her and puts his fingers on her chin to lift her face up before saying, "You know, cutie, the only crime here is that you and I haven't gone out on a..." Before he can finish, however, she hits him with more powerful bolts from her eyes. Alright. She does have something better than lame-ass starbolts. He thinks to himself as he ends up landing against a few boxes only to see Beast Boy coming at him while changing into a large bear. I don't have time for this shit. The thief thinks to himself as he narrows his eyes on the charging bear. Responding quickly, the thief flips up and slams his open palm on the ground, creating a large X-shaped hole in the floor, which the green bear falls into with very wide eyes. Watch your step, the thief says humorously as he jumps over the hole. Walking over to the still downed Robin, he pushes the boy blunder out of the way with his foot and picks up something that looks a lot like a gun. So this is the Zenothium scanner, finally found it at least, he says to himself as he picks it up. As he jumps over Robin, the boy wonder manages to get up and starts to chase him again. I won't let you get away with. Robin starts before being tripped by a stretchy X that wraps around his ankles, tripping him and making him hit his chin on the ground. X smirks to himself as he then turns around and looks at Robin while smirking under his mask. Better luck next time, kid, he says as he spins the gun-like scanner around his finger before attaching it to his belt, and then gives the boy blunder a mock salute. And thanks for the suit. He pushes on the middle of the gray belt buckle, preparing to teleport, when it starts to work and then just stops. Looking down, X blinks behind his mask, then begins to press the button over and over again. Come on, he says urgently while pressing the button again as Robin starts to get up and breaks the bonds on his legs at long last. Great, it's running low on juice, he mutters lowly before turning around and running away from the pursuing Robin. Jumping up through an open roof window, he keeps running, and the boy in traffic light tights remains in hot pursuit. This time, X begins punching the belt buckle and jumps, dodging another tackle attempt from Robin. He turns around in mid-air and gives yet another mock salute before speaking to the way too serious teen yet again. Catch you later. With that, the thief shimmers out of existence, leaving a glaring Robin in his wake. When the blonde thief reappears, however, his is on the roof of a building a few mere blocks away, well out of sight of the Titans yet close enough that he didn't waste any of his remaining power. Damn, now that's what I call fun, the thief says with a little chuckle and grins to himself as he reaches up and removes the skull mask to reveal the bright blue eyes, whiskered cheek, and spiked blonde hair of one Uzumaki Naruto. Now, if I could just figure out how this thing works. He then says to himself as he unhooks the sensor from his belt and glares at the gun-shaped device. Titans Tower, Jump City, California. Robin looks out from the rooftop of Titans Tower and out to the city, a frown marring his face as he thinks back to the recent conflict with their new foe. Or rather, his old mistake. I'm supposed to be one of the good guys. To always do the right thing. Robin calmly breathes in the cool night air, and then looks up to the hanging moon in the sky. Eyes narrowing, Robin briefly sees a flash of red in his sight, but it's simply a trick of his mind as that red forms an X over the moon. The line is supposed to be clear. But for me, back then, it wasn't. A madman was threatening the city, and I had to stop him. Robin closes his eyes, seeing the face of their old enemy, Slade, as his soldiers all stand before him and at the ready. Robin's fists tighten, his muscles tense, but he somehow manages to calm himself. Even the mere thoughts of the madman brought a foul taste to the boy wonder's mouth, and made him strain like a tightly coiled spring ready to snap under pressure. Shaking his head and smoothing back his spiky hair, Robin quickly turns, his cape swishing behind him as he enters Titan's Tower, heading for his room. So I became Red X. A ruthless thief who could get closer to the madman than Robin ever could. The boy wonder wanders through the halls, soon coming to the darkened hallway that led to his room. Raven lived on the other side of the tower. Starfire was a hall down from her. Robin had the tower built like this so the guys wouldn't bother them. He was in the middle, away from yet close to all his friends in case any emergency was to occur, and he was needed. The Caped Crusader soon reaches his room, and presses in the code for his room, the door sliding to one side to reveal the dark room beyond. Newspaper clippings on the wall of various villains. Robin slowly closes, then opens his eyes. Now before him is a shadowed form. It's himself, donning the X-suit for the first time, developing the weapons, and finalizing the technology employed into the suit's other features. But I didn't tell my teammates. And my plan didn't work. I almost lost my life. And my friends. Robin grimaces. He sees himself fighting the Titans, beating them one by one, not a wasted movement, not a wasted effort, and he beat all of them easily. But that was why he was the leader. Even without powers, he was still able to beat the Teen Titans. Robin shook his head of those thoughts. They were what Slade would want him to think after all. Walking forward, Robin picked up the object that alerted Starfire to his plan nearly a year earlier. He soon dropped the object to the ground and crushed it under his boot. It was a mistake he was not going to repeat. And it was one he thought he had already cleaned up. It was the closest I've ever come to crossing the line. And I thought it was in the past. But now. Robin walked out of his room and back down the halls and corridors of Titan's Tower with practiced ease. He knew every room, every hall, and every entrance or exit in the building. No one knew more about this building. Not even Cyborg, who helped build it, only knew what Robin let him know. Stopping suddenly, Robin grimaced. He was thinking like Slade again. Starfire was right about one thing, it seemed. He and Slade were unfortunately very similar. Shaking his head, Robin quickly made his way down into the tower's depths. Soon reaching his destination, Robin punched in the code for the door. Entering, he looked around the evidence room, admiring the numerous trinkets and objects that he and the Titans had collected over the years. Quickly moving that to the back of his mind, Robin walked over to another door and pressed in the code. Narrowing his eyes, he watched as it swung open and walked in also. He frowned, seeing the door to the X-suit's resting place open. The suit gone. His mistake was truly back to haunt him. Someone else has crossed that line. And it's my job to stop him. But who is he? Cyborg demands as he and the Titans, minus Robin, all look at numerous screenshots of the renegade thief known as Red X. I mean, if Robin's the ex-Red X, who's the new guy? Cyborg reiterates, but is then knocked to the side as Beast Boy pushes a dry erase board up in front of the massive screen. On the board are numerous pictures of alternate Robins, either known or unknown. Some Beast Boy has even made up from the looks of things. Okay. If he's not Robin's evil twin, then he's obviously a bionic monkey infused with Robin's DNA. Beast Boy says, and gets a look that suddenly makes him feel like a moron from the two female Titans. In fact, they look to one another soon after, as if silently saying, "He's an idiot," to one another. And as soon as Cyborg manages to see the theory, he has the same reaction as the girls and stares at BB. Raven then raises a hand and makes the board start spinning, knocking BB into the air and then landing into the kitchen as several items of food go flying, as well as a larvae-like creature, while Starfire clasps her hands over her mouth. Face it. Red X could be anyone. Anyone smart enough to find the suit and dumb enough to take it for a joyride. Raven says in her usual monotone, X sneezing somewhere in the city while trying to figure out how to work the scanner, as Beast Boy manages to put his head up woozily and look around. And when Robin returns, he will help us to discover who. Starfire says confidently, just as the boy wonder walks into the room and over to the screen Cyborg had the numerous X shots posted on. It doesn't matter. I created Red X. Every system, every weapon. Narrowing his eyes on the skull mask thief, Robin finishes. Whoever's inside that suit, he's my responsibility. Robin says simply, while clenching his fists on the control panel of the screen. Well, if we're gonna catch him, we at least need to figure out what he's after. Cyborg mentions and Robin twitches. He looks down at the keys for the screen with narrowed eyes before sighing lightly. I already know. The boy wonder types on the keys as he informs the Titans this, soon bringing up a picture of an X-shaped molecule. Zenothium. The fuel that powers the suit. He tells the group, collecting gasps from those around. Save Beast Boy. Ah man, I never understand anything. The Green Bean exclaims while stomping away from the too smart for their own good Titans and sits down to merely listen to what is being said. Zenothium! You powered that suit with Zenothium! Are you crazy, man? That shit is dangerous and unstable. Tell me you were not stupid enough to go messing with it. Cyborg exclaims while waving his arms around and yelling at Robin, the boy wonder looking slightly comical as he hunches down with a scowl on his face, Cyborg's voice loud enough to push his spiky hair back. Robin grits his teeth under Cyborg's tirade, his cape wrapped tightly around himself. Like I said, it was a mistake. Robin snaps while clicking a few more buttons on the screen's control panel, bringing up a few shots of the gun like Scanner X stole earlier. The Scanner Red X stole will locate any Zenothium within a 10-mile radius. Robin explains and Raven frowns. That only works if X actually knows how to work the device, and that was slightly unlikely. So we must locate it first. Starfire says, cutting Raven from her thoughts, and Cyborg pulls a cord from his chest panel and plugs it into the console. X isn't the only one with a scanner. I'm downloading the molecular signature and transmitting to your communicators. He tells them while typing on the control panel of the console and downloading the information. Thanks, Robin says, yet walks past the other Titans and towards the door. But I need it, he says cryptically while walking past the double doors of the room, making Cyborg blink and look towards him with a confused expression. How are you gonna find the Zenothium without a scanner? Cyborg questions of his leader, while still confused, and the spiky-haired boy merely scowls as the doors slowly close behind him. The same way I found it the first time. Rooftops, Jump City. X had long given up on trying to work that damn scanner. Instead, he decided he'd find Robin and let the kid lead him to some Zenothium. Unfortunately, the kid had gone to a freak named Dr. Chang or something. The guy was obvious bad news, yet the kid had mentioned someone would be stealing some Zenothium. Really, how stupid was Robin to tell a criminal something like that? X was currently watching as Robin stared at a building across from their location. He was currently using the invisibility function of his suit in order to stay out of the birdbrain's sight. Then a green bird flew towards the building, changing into Beast Boy as he nears the ground and tosses a green feather over his shoulder. So, you're pretty much kicking yourself for not getting rid of that Red X suit when you had the chance, huh? The green jester says, making silently slap his forehead. Even he had more tact than to say something so stupid to the kid, damn it. Robin's reaction to the question is his body tensing in silence, which makes the green being uneasy. Forget I said anything, he says while rubbing the back of his head and Robin's shoulders relax slightly. I couldn't destroy it. The Zenothium power core is too dangerous to dispose of. Robin tells the green teen while X himself rolls his eyes, wondering why the kid is so damn serious all the time and why BB is so goofy. It was supposed to stay locked away. Robin adds, and X inwardly chuckles to himself. Too bad you didn't do a better job of hiding or locking it, chuckles. It's mine now, the thief thinks as Raven emerges from the shadows nearby. No sign of Red X, she says while Starfire touches down with a worried look on her face. Nor of Cyborg, she says, and X raises a brow. What the hell happened to Cyborg now? As he is wondering about this, Robin pulls out his communicator and opens it, quickly pushing the button to call Cyborg. Cyborg! Report! He demands while speaking into the device, his hands clenching tighter as his worry grows. Cyborg! He exclaims, then takes a breath and lowers the device to his side. X must have attacked him. If Cyborg's hurt, it's my fault. The kid says while stalking past the cutie, and X twitches. Why the fucking hell would he attack the tin head? He's just trying to steal some damn Zenothium, not destroy them. Robin, Starfire says softly to her friend while X continues to inwardly see that Robin's words about him attacking Cyborg. Had he looked, he might have noticed Raven was looking in his direction with a raised brow. I'm responsible, Starfire, for everything that's happened, the kid suddenly said, breaking both X and Raven from their musings to turn towards him and wonder what just happened, as neither had been paying much attention. No, Robin. The error you made, it is in the past. You are no longer the one inside that suit, the red-haired girl says while walking over to Robin, and X grins. After all, that sounds like his cue if he's ever heard one. And personally, X says while turning his cloaking device off, Raven frowning as she sees just who she was sensing only a short while ago. I think it looks much cooler on me, X boasts while forming several X-shaped shuriken into his hand and throwing them towards the Titans. Move! Robin orders, and X smirks behind his mask, it looked like it was time to play with the kids again. Leaping from the roof, X lands and turns to see Raven and Beast Boy heading straight for him. X smirks seeing BB become a rhino, and it reminded of how this kid is not really the sharpest kunai in the pack. X smirks as he whips out an X, sending it flying towards both as it wraps around Beast Boy, knocking him back into Raven and allowing it to wrap around and trap her as well, sending both towards Starfire and ending 3 problems in one fell swing. X then hears a loud roar, and grins as the kid comes rushing towards him, creating an X on his palm to block an attack from the kid and send him skidding to the side. Robin rushes towards him once more, making X wonder why he was trying something that didn't work last time. Forming another shield, X knocks Robin to the ground with a smirk, and watches as he's getting up. "This'll be too good to pass up, man." He then thinks to himself as he reaches forward and grasps Robin's mask, trying to pull it off only to raise a brow as it stretches. "What the fuck?" The thief wonders before releasing the seemingly elastic mask to snap back onto Robin's face, eliciting a painful snap as Robin lets out a pained yelp then grasps his face. X takes advantage of the momentary distraction to jump from the side of the building and towards the company building below, smirking as he then uses his teleportation device to land on the glass roof safely then rush towards an open door. Getting inside, X rushes down the many halls before stopping and narrowing his eyes. "I don't know where the fuck I'm going," he mutters bitterly before sighing, and then has an idea. "Duh, the security room has to have cameras," he exclaims and heads rushing in that direction. Later, X had found the security room. He had also figured out how to get to the Zenothium, or held several floors below his current location. "Just have to get past a few traps, a few blocks, and I'll be set," X says to himself while walking down a hall, wondering why no one was on guard duty. The kid probably called them and told them that he and the other kids would handle guard duty, or something stupid like that. X thought with a frown as he then walked and saw Robin at the door he needed. Inwardly cursing, X turned on his cloaking device to sneak past Robin. Seeing the look on the kid's face, X smirks. "I'd bet he's wondering what he'd do if he were me." The thief thinks to himself, then hears a shrill scream just as he reaches the door. "Hey, wasn't that the cutie?" he wonders to himself as Robin quickly turns around. "Starfire?" he wonders, then rushes off, X's cloak turning off to show the thief was now standing right in front of the damn door. As Robin is rushing off, X gets an idea in his head that makes him grin beneath his mask. "What's the matter, kid?" he calls out, causing Robin to stop and turn to look at him with surprise on his face. "Don't you want to play? After all, they're your toys," X says while several X's appear in his hands once more before the thief then tosses them towards Robin, the young titan ducking out of the way as the X's hit a control panel that had been behind Robin and explode. The door behind X then unlocks, making the thief smirk as he flips backwards into an array of laser beams. Robin following the thief as they jump and flip through the numerous lasers, without missing a beat. The two soon come out of the hall and into a large downward shaft. X grins as he and Robin fall down the shaft, only the thief increases his rate of acceleration and lets another X fly. The object hurls downward, hitting a shimmering force field that lies below, and making an X-shaped opening which X falls through while it closes behind him, making Robin smash face first into the field. X looks at this and can't help snicker before rushing off, leaving the overly serious Sasuke lookalike to try and get past the force field. Rushing down a long hall, X suddenly stops at a room with numerous black tiles on the floor, making the thief frown. Okay. Either this is a trap, or the decorator got tired of all the boring white tiles. X thought to himself with a small chuckle, then decided to wait for Robin, switching on his cloaking device and hiding behind the door of the room. He didn't have to wait long, and as soon as Robin entered, the lights flashed on. X shook his head at this, and then moved behind Robin. "After you?" X says humorously while pushing Robin onto the tiles, which then form a large red X under him. Robin looks up and his eyes go wide as he then noticed a large cannon-like device heading towards him from the ceiling. Ducking out of the way as the beam fires, Robin finds another red X appearing below him and quickly runs off of it, heading towards the door on the other side of the room. X smirked behind his mask at this and simply jumped over the tiles, soon landing on the other side and walking past the door. "Thanks for the hand, kid," X says simply as he closes the door, his last sight of the boy wonder being his wide, disbelieving eyes as he was trapped with the cannon. Ignoring that, X pushed the door completely closed and locked it. The thief looks around and slightly frowns. The vault is circular with a platform in the middle that has a tube of Zenothium floating over it while a light is shining down. Resting before the platform is a control panel with a screen, which X walks over to. "Zenothium or," he says to himself and enters a command into the control console. Grips rise from the floor and reach up, grasping the vial of Zenothium and bring it down before handing it to X. "Enough to power the suit for a good long time," he says while looking at the object, then walks over to one of the circular hatches around the room and opens it. Pulling out a yellow containment device, X places it on the floor, then kneels down to open it up. "I love it when the good guy wins," the thief says, about to put the tube into the device, then gets a start when a loud rumbling comes from the area outside. X quickly places the tube into his belt and turns to the door in time to watch as a familiar laser begins to burn through the wall around the circular door, then finishes to allow the door to drop, revealing Robin, who has the cannon from before in his arms, still glowing from where he has used it. "You're not going to win," Robin snarls before dropping the cannon and lunging forward at the surprised Red X with both a roar and flying roundhouse kick. The attack sends the thief and his container flying, both hitting the fall wall. Slowly getting back to his feet, X can't help but nearly laugh at Robin. Something about this kid is just so amusing. "Kid, you are taking life way too seriously," X tells Robin with a grin on his face before charging forward, the kid doing likewise. Robin jumps with another kick directed towards the thief, only for him to flip under him then away from him. Robin grabs several small explosive pellets from his belt and tosses them towards X. The thief manages to evade just in time as they explode. The thief lands while seamlessly pushing himself into a flip and tossing several X shuriken towards Robin, who dodges just in time for the some shuriken to miss his head while using his extendable staff to block the rest. The two stare down at one another for a few moments, X smirking as he holds up a hand. The X on the back of his glove suddenly grows to become an X-shaped blade. X then lunges at Robin, as he lets the same happen to his other glove, an X-blade forming out of the back, then slashes down towards Robin. The Titan moves out of the way quickly, then dodges a second slash before quickly trying to sweep the thief's feet from under him. Dodging a jab from the sharp punches, Robin catches X's blades on his staff, then shoves X back a ways. X has to quickly duck as Robin comes at him with a flying swing of his staff. As the staff flies over his head, X lunges at Robin, swinging his X blades towards the younger teen. The two continue in a dance as X's blades and Robin's staff both arch and swing, until Robin finally manages to hit X, knocking the thief to the side. "Okay, no more Mr. Nice Guy," X thinks with a frown and gets up. Activating his X-blades, they quickly begin spinning like rotary saws. Lunging forward, X swings his arm at Robin's head, the teen only just managing to get down as the thief's weapon sparks along the metal of the walls. Robin quickly dodges as X swings the saw-like weapon at his head, then down towards him again. Robin managing to evade, then brandishes his staff, which extends and nearly hits X in the head. However, the thief dodges, then knocks the weapon to the side and lunges at Robin with a few quickly swings of his arms, only to be kicked back with a grunt of pain. The two then come forward once more, Robin and X's weapons locking together, as X glares at the teen and Robin does likewise. "Why did you steal the suit? What are you planning to do?" Robin demands with a slight strain to his voice, and X smirks once more as he answers. "Whatever I want." With that, X quickly flips both himself and Robin backwards, quickly tossing the Titan away from himself. "Not everybody likes to play the big villain, kid. I'm a thief," X states simply as the blades on his gloves retract. "I'm not threatening your precious city, just looking out for number one," X informs simply, and Robin narrows his masked eyes, brandishing his staff. "So you're not psychotic. You're just selfish," Robin retorts, and X can't help a slight laugh that escapes his throat. "Lighten up, Chuckles," he says humorously and raises both of his palms towards the other teen. "I'm not such a bad guy, once you get to know me." With that, X quickly fires a pair of X's towards Robin, the kid managing to deflect one with his staff only to be knocked off his feet by the other. X quickly lunges at Robin, jumping up and brining his foot down in a stomp just as Robin rolls out of the way. Robin then kicks X in the back, knocking him into a wall with a grunt only to fall to the floor and see the container with the Zenothium across from him. "Playtime's over, kid," X says while quickly grabbing the container, Robin pulling out a Bertarang. "Back off or I trip the power core," X says darkly, his finger a mere few inches from the buckle of his belt, the front of it opening to glow an ominous red. "And the core triggers the rocks," X says, and Robin frowns while slowly lowers the Bertarang. "I don't think you want that on your conscience." X tries and Robin narrows his eyes, quickly raising the Bertarang once more. "And I don't think you want to be disintegrated," Robin says simply, and X inwardly growls, now the kid doesn't think he's crazy? Really, what god did he piss off out there for this? However, as he thinks this, he notices a confused look cross Robin's features and turns his head to the door behind him, only to see men in strange suits like that Chang guy wore, one raising a weapon which glows red and fires at him, hitting him in the chest as electricity courses through his body. X lands with a grunt, only half conscious as he hears the kid, and figures he's been hit too. Looking on as the moon men continue to enter the vault, he groans softly and blacks out with only one thought in his head. Why did the kid just have to mention someone breaking into this place to a known villain? Later. "Ugh," X grunted as he slowly got up, rubbing his head and groaning once more while rubbing his head some more. "All right, who are the moon men?" he questioned, and then heard something hum. Quickly looking up, X saw a circle of light. Looking down, he saw another circle. "Huh?" he questioned intelligently before then watching as familiar red beams rise from the floor to form bars around him. "Criminals," comes Robin's voice, and X turns to see the kid standing in front of the main control panel. "Just like you," he says while walking to stand in front of the thief, who chuckles lightly and grasps the bars of the cell. "Come on, kid. You don't really think this little playpen can hold me?" X says while gripping the bars of the cell, only for Robin to press a nearby switch and shock the thief. "You don't even care, do you? A low-life maniac just got his hands on enough Zenothium to disintegrate the entire city, and it's your fault," Robin tells X with a snarl, the blonde quirks an eyebrow beneath his mask at the younger teen's words. "Don't you mean our fault?" he quips with a smirk on under his mask. After all, Robin was the one who mentioned to a highly dangerous criminal that someone would be breaking into this place, not him, while Robin himself simply narrowed his masked eyes onto the taller teen. "At least I'm going to do something about it. And if you cared about anything other than yourself, you'd be helping," Robin nearly shouted at the thief, who suppressed a growl at his words. Where the hell did this fucking kid get off telling him how to live his damn life? "Sorry, kid. Some guys don't like to play the hero," X said with gritted teeth, though his vocal synthesizer masked the anger in his voice perfectly. Robin frowned at the thief and pointed towards him with a single finger. "I'll be back to take you to jail," Robin says, then turns his back on X and walks away. Disgust is clear in his tone, which angers X even further. The blonde-haired thief then narrows his eyes on the computer terminal, wondering how to get out for a few mere moments before acting. "Sorry, kid, I won't be here for that appointment," X mutters while then holding his hands outside of the bars without touching them and forming a familiar T-shaped hand seal. "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," he exclaims, and in a plume of smoke a second red X now stands outside of the bars. The new X looks around the room before walking over to the console and pressing a few of the buttons. The bars around the original X dim and fade before then vanishing completely. "Nice one," X says to his clone, which then walks over to him and promptly slams his fist into X's jaw. The thief is sent flying back only to slowly get back up with a groan. "What the hell was that for?" X demands of the clone, which crosses its arms over its chest and glares down at the original. "You're not Naruto Uzumaki. So who are you?" the clone said with a shake of its head, X blinking behind his mask at the copy's words. The clone then circled around X, the thief quickly flipping to his feet to stare at the clone with a frown on his face. "And just what the hell makes you say that?" he questions, and the clone stretches his shoulders before then sighing out. "You have betrayed those who were your friends in the hive. You're no longer using jutsu so you can hide your skills from the Titans, then use them when they least expect it. You have attempted to kill Robin 5 times today alone. You have discarded your training for the power of this suit. Need I go on? The clone listed then questioned, and X's eyes widened. Had he really done all of that? So I ask once more. Who are you? The copy questions cryptically, and X shakes his head quickly. I am Naruto Uzumaki. Who else could I be? X demands, and the copy crosses its arms and laughs lightly. You are not Naruto. At the moment you are Red X. Every thought. Every move. The clone says darkly, and X twitches. What is this thing talking about? You only put on this suit to learn the controls for your new one. Why are you going after the Zenothium? Because it is something Red X would do. The clone states darkly, and X's eyes widen. That's right. He remembers Gizmo saying the layout for the suit's weapons are the same in either one. He wanted to learn how to work it by using the older model, but then. Why was he after the Zenothium? Because it's a challenge to take on the kids? X says weakly, and the clone merely looks at him, his masked eyes turning a burning red, much to X's shock. Really? And is that something that Naruto or Red X would do? The clone questions, his voice distorting from Naruto's, becoming raspy and metallic sounding. X could only stand in silence. The clone was starting to make sense. He had been trying to master the X suit. He had gone out of his way to, no less, constantly watching the few clips that he had managed to get from the Hive computers on Robin's fight with the Titans as Red X. Had he also slowly started to act like Red X instead of Naruto as well? Yes. Now you see it, don't you? Then allow me to remind you how to be Naruto Uzumaki once more. The red-eyed clone said darkly while slowly forming into a combat stance. 1X was sure he should know, but for the life of him he couldn't remember where it was from. X did likewise, and also decided to call the copy Red for its burning eyes. Who? What are you? X questions, and Red merely assuming a strange stance. 1X feels he knows but can't remember for some reason. Neither enemy nor friend. I am like you, a shadow from the past. A shadow of that which Naruto Uzumaki once was. And as a shadow I have no name. As he says this, the clone lunges forward at X with a roundhouse punch which X blocked, leaving him open. The clone then quickly jabbed X in the face before reeling a hand back and slamming it into his gut, bending X downward, where he then used a roundhouse kick to knock him to the side. X grunts, hitting a wall, and looks up to Red with narrowed eyes before lunging at Red himself. However, Red quickly forms an X in one palm and knocks X to the side effortlessly. Turning on his heel, the copy then takes a new stance. X doesn't bother to read it, however, and blindly rushes forward, throwing punches and kicks towards the copy. However, the masked copy of the Master Thief blocks all these pathetic strikes, and soon X's arm is grasped, and he is judo tossed by Red once more. If I was facing Naruto Uzumaki, I'd be nothing but smoke by now. Red says darkly as his form shimmers to a more demonic version, but then returns to normal as he takes on a new stance. X then narrows his eyes on Red, a new stance for the Shadow Claw making itself known in his mind, and X suddenly finds his body moving on its own, moving into an intricate stance unlike the ones he had been using. That's good, X. You're starting to remember who you are at last. Red praises and lunges forward, X finding himself to do the same as they punch towards one another at the same time, fist meeting fist, and a small shockwave comes from their fists. The two slide back from the force of the shockwave, and X quickly moves his right leg forward while his left leg was backward and bent at the knee. He was remembering. He remembered this version of the Shadow Claw. He had made it after all. He had made it with his mother. Yes. Yes. Remember. Red said darkly, then reached up and ripped the cape from his body, throwing it off to the side as he then formed a more intricate stance. The X-blades unfurling from his gloves, making X's eyes go wide as the clone lunged forward. X dodged the blade as it nearly cut his head off, then blocked Red's arm next, before judo tossing the copy over his shoulder and to a wall. The clone merely landed in a crouch against the wall before lunging off of it, and at X, swinging his leg into a roundhouse kick. X dodged to the side, however, and fired an X towards the copy. Red jumped high into the air, however, and then landed near X, swinging his X blades towards the thief. X dodged and then threw a quick kick towards Red's head, only for him to vanish then reappear a few feet away, as he slowly stood up to his full height. X didn't give the copy time to do anything, however. He was starting to remember himself. Not the dope, not Red X, and not the bitter and spiteful Naruto who had left Konoha. The Naruto who would rather beat the hell out of you rather than take someone else's shit. The Naruto Uzumaki who had promised his mother that he would make friends. Naruto suddenly opened his eyes behind his mask and waved an arm toward Red, blades of wind forming on his hands and launching towards the copy, which flips up and over the attack before vanishing and reappearing a short ways away. More! More! Red suddenly exclaimed as he then began to slip into a new stance much faster than before, while his X blades folded back into the backs of his gloves. X knew this stance, however, and formed a stance of his own to counter it as Red came forward with a backhand, blocked by Naruto who threw a punch at the copy, only for him to lean back. The fist missed as Red then kicked out and knocked X back. The thief flipped to his feet quickly, however, and assumed another stance while trying to think of a jutsu to use, only to frown and take an offensive stance. Even if he used a jutsu, Red would be able to counter it. That's good, X. Now we can fight as true warriors. Red then said as he reached down and threw his belt to the side, then moved his arms before himself as an after-image followed them. Hand-to-hand is the basis of all combat. Only a fool trusts his life to a weapon or jutsu. Red said darkly while forming another stance and lunging forward, punching X in the face. X grunted, but instead of falling he arched his body and moved into a backward roll, soon coming out of it to glare at Red heatedly. X roared loudly, eyes wide, as he then quickly rushed towards Red with a fist drawn back. The copy crouched, however, and then flipped over the thief, landing behind him, and then kicking X in the back and to the ground. Yes. You remember it now. The clashing of bone and sinew. Red told the thief cryptically as he then formed into a new stance, and X did likewise, feeling the old thrill of battle as visions of the fights he had before his memories were sealed danced through his mind. Red lunged forward in a sideways flip, kicking out at X, who blocked, then knocked Red's other foot out from under him, knocking him to the ground, only for him to flip away before X could finish him off. Yes. Yes. That's good, X. Remember that feeling. Remember how to be yourself again. The copy cried as X did start to remember. He remembered working on the variation of the Shadow Claw tirelessly when he learned the original version, much to his mother's dismay, even as she helped him. I do, Naruto suddenly whispered to himself, and then formed his body into a new stance. The two lunged forward once more, X kicking out as Red blocked, then punched towards X, who caught the fist and twisted, throwing the copy to the side only for it to place a hand on the floor and flip to his feet. Yes, X. Remember who you are, Red exclaimed while then lunging forward quickly, kicking out at X, who rolled to the side. Red then lunged forward once more, punching out at the thief with deadly precision. X dodged the attack, then struck out himself, only for Red to dodge like he had. Red roared, lunging forward with a roundhouse, which X dodged by rolling to the side, then tried to sweep the copy off its feet. Red flipped over this, however, then came straight down from above, X rolling to the side to avoid as he stomped on the ground, making a crater where he hit. X suddenly had a flash of memories, remembering names, places, and things from the past he had forgotten even without the seal. All his memories had been about bad things while he had blocked the good. And some of his training had been blocked. I remember you now, X exclaimed while flipping back to his feet and glaring at Red. You're my shadow. Opposite and equal to me in every way. Mom made you. She made you to help me train, X said softly, and Red nodded his head slowly with a light chuckle, the clone slowly falling into a kneeling position. Yes. You remember at long last, the clone said while slowly standing up fully, before once more falling to one knee. I have done what was necessary for for our survival. Should you have continued down the path you were, we surely would have fallen into darkness like Sasuke, Red said as he slowly began to fade. X turned his back to the clone and walked towards the exit as this was happening. But listened to it nonetheless. Go now, brother. And remember, we are the wind. We follow our own course, going where we please and following no one's directions but our own. Red finished while he and his discarded equipment vanished into a simple plume of smoke, while X turned to narrow his eyes on the spot. I will. With that, the thief ran out of the room, inwardly cursing he couldn't use his teleportation device to travel through walls. He'd have to ask some gearhead why later, probably Gizmo, at least if the little guy ever forgave him for the stunt at the hive. I guess I'll have to find them as soon as I can and apologize. I don't like bad blood between my friends and me. After all, they're all I've got in this lonely world. X whispered before smirking, yes. He was finally himself again. Chang's hideout. X made it to the observatory-like building and ran up the side to find any kind of entrance, the best one being the front door, unfortunately. So the thief ran in and knocked out the few guards out there before making his way up a flight of stairs and found himself in time to see Robin hanging from a broken railing while below the other Titans are frozen, save for Starfire's head. Okay, good boy. Who should I destroy first? You, or your pretty friend? Chang questions darkly while moving his cannon towards the red-haired girl, and X narrows his eyes on the estranged man with a frown. Starfire! Robin exclaims with wide eyes, and X forms a shuriken into his hand and poises it as the cannon now sits at point-blank range with the cutie. X lets the object fly, cutting the lever and button to fire the weapon away, much to Chang's surprise. X lets more of the objects fly at that moment, sending them all hurling towards the device, which sparks with electricity that knocks Chang back, covering his face. Hearing a gasp from Starfire, X looks back down at them and sees her staring at Robin, who seems like he's losing his grip on the railing. X curses under his breath as he then lunges onto the railings and launches himself across, catching Robin and then grabbing onto another railing before throwing him onto the balcony around the room and taking a second to catch his breath. That fight with Red must have took more out of him than he thought. I thought you didn't like to play the hero, Robin says, bringing X out of his thoughts to look at the kid and smirk behind his mask. Doesn't mean I don't know how, X quips before then flipping up and onto the balcony himself to stand next to Robin. The two duck as red lasers come flying at them. The two look to one another before nodding to the other and running forward and jumped into a pair of flying kicks, a dove flying past them as they do. The two come down on an unlucky henchman's face, knocking him back as they lunge forward once more, Robin smirking as he kicked a man's feet out from under him, and X delivered a roundhouse kick to knock him away. The two then find themselves surrounded by the henchmen on both sides, and X can't help a light chuckle. How many can you handle, kid? He questions, and Robin thinks mock seriously before smirking. It might be trouble if one more shows up, he says, and X nods his head slowly. Then that'll be the one I take care of, he adds, and Robin grins widely. Wait, you're fighting? He quips in mock amazement, and X grins. You're learning, he thinks with a slight chuckle, and lunges forward, raising a fist to knock back a henchman as Robin lunges at another with a flying roundhouse kick, knocking the henchman to the ground below. The two then flip back, and X fires an X-beam into one's chest while Robin tosses an explosive disc at another. The two then grip their unlikely ally's forearm and jump up to kick a man in the face on either side, then swing their bodies to the side, releasing the other's arm to punch a henchman in X's case or kick one in Robin's. The two then flip backwards to stand back to back, fists at the ready, and X notices a smirk on Robin's face from the corner of his eye. The two then both spin into a roundhouse kick to knock the last of the guards back to the ground and out cold. Hell, I can still lay them out better than the kid, X thought, as him having the longer leg meant his foot had been the one to primarily connect with the thug's head. The two look at and nod to one another before rushing over to the railing to see Chang pounding on his control panel. Is he really that stupid? X wonders to himself as an electrical spark from the control panel answers his question, and the cannon suddenly firing as Starfire lets out a yelp and ducks down, her hair being burned as the beam of the cannon then heads right in Robin and Red X's direction. Look out! Robin calls while pulling X with him, and the two run from the destructive beam of energy, X wondering what he did to deserve this in his mind. The two ran from the beam as it began to cut through the building like a hot knife through butter, X and Robin both soon slowing down as the beam fizzles out. An entire section of the building then groans before falling away, and X looks over to Chang and nudges Robin, who narrows his eyes and heads for the villain. X meanwhile grins and heads for the newly opened port at the back of the device. Time to get what I came for, he says to himself, only to slide to a stop in a crouch as the Titans suddenly form a wall in front of him, Cyborg with his cannon at the ready. How did those guys thaw out so quickly? X wonders, then sees a tube of Zenothium on the floor out of the corner of his eye and slowly picks it up. Time's up, Raven quips, and X merely stands up to face them, his cape covering him from view. Thanks for the help, X, Robin says, and X is amused to see a smirk on the usually serious Titan's face. But don't think that means you can help yourself, he says while pulling out an explosive disc, and X chuckles in his throat. No problem, kid, he says while holding a palm towards the Titans, and then reveals the full tube of Zenothium he picked up. This should keep me going for a good long while, X says, and Robin's lips twitch. The boy wonder then grins as he puts his disc away and looks to X. That won't do you much good without this, Robin says, holding the thief's belt up, and X quickly looks down only to find it missing and chuckles in his throat at the irony of it. Touché, kid. Touché, he thinks to himself while backing away from the Titans and looking over his shoulder to the water below. Better luck next time, he hears Robin say, and his own lips twitch. This was all planned, not in his head, but X knew the irony of it all. He had lost himself to this persona, and then found himself just in time for the kid to steal what he needed to be the old X. What irony. Looks like I'm going to be needing Giz's suit after all. This was fun and all, but I got to admit, a chakra-based power source is a lot less of a hassle. Besides, I think it might be fun to show these kids I have more tricks up my sleeve than a supersuit. X then thought to himself and fingers the tube in his hand. He could have had a clone go. And get more, he could have had a clone henge into the belt and stole the real one back. But he was the wind, and as such he wouldn't do something they would expect. He followed only his course after all. Not bad, kid. The Titans advance, and X simply laughs in his throat. Not bad at all, he says, and throws the Zenothium tube to the ground before then falling backwards out of the building. He quickly turns to face the water, however, and forms a few hand seals, vanishing into a plume of smoke, which is blown away by the wind, leaving the Titans to wonder where he disappeared. There is good, and there is evil, but the line between them can be almost impossible to find. Beast Boy hovers over the cove where X fell. Starfire flies nearby, helping her friend look for the masked thief. The two soon land and look around, yet not even the smallest clue can be seen as to the whereabouts of the master thief. Beast Boy changes back to normal and takes a thoughtful expression, wondering where X ran off to. Does one good deed make him a hero? Am I to blame for all of it, because of a single mistake? Robin walks into the room where the X-suit had hung. Now he places the belt for the suit into a small safe, closing and locking the door with a random code, so no one could ever retrieve the object ever again. Meanwhile, in a sewer, a figure drops down into the water and runs down the darkened tunnel. It is revealed to be X when moonlight filters down to hit him, illuminating the thief as he makes his newest escape. In the end, all I really know is that the answers don't come easy. Robin stands on top of Titan's tower, his masked eyes watching the horizon, looking off into the distance as the sun slowly rises once more. He sees a shadow hover over the city, however, not Slade or Brother Bloods. This shadow belongs to Red X. Robin narrows his eyes as the shadow vanishes with the morning sun. Turning, the hero walks back into Titan's tower, leaving Red X behind him once more. It's supposed to be simple, but it's not. A black limo rolls to a halt before the entrance to a cave on the outskirts of Jump City. We've arrived, madam, a rich, cultured voice informs as a girl looks out of the window for a short time before opening her door and walking towards the cave. The girl has startling white hair, which reaches her shoulder blades, with gray eyes, pale alabaster skin, a slender body with a decent bust, long legs, and an athletic build. She wears a green shirt with a cartoon cat's face on the front, a pair of tight blue jeans, and a pair of black boots. I'll only be a minute, the girl told the driver, who nodded stiffly, and the girl walked fully into the cave. Reaching into a pocket, The girl pulled out a small flashlight and turned it on to light her way. Walking deeper into the cave, the girl looked at a statue and snarled for a moment before glaring. "You've paid. But your friends haven't. Not yet, at least." She whispers and walks past the statue. Sliding down an incline, she finds what she was looking for, half melted and sticking out of the rock. "I know we didn't always get along. I know I probably didn't turn out how you wanted. But I'm going to change all that. I'll make them pay for your death. Father," she whispers while placing a bouquet of roses onto the ground and smiles. "Roses from Rose," she whispers and stands up straight, turning away from the half-melted object. A copper and black facial mask with one eye hole. Walking out of the cave, the girl turns her flashlight off and places it back into her pocket, closing her eyes deep in thought. "Miss Wilson, we should return home. You're going to need your rest after all," her butler says as he stands out of the limo and holds a door open for her. He is a thin man, with balding black hair spilling down his shoulders. Wearing a white suit with black dress shirt and white tie. Holding a gloved hand towards the door, the man gives a polite bow, but the girl walks past him. She now stands on a cliff, looking towards Jump City with cold gray eyes unseen in any normal person, female or not. "Wintergreen," the girl says coldly, and the butler looks to her with a questioning expression, yet not voicing his inquiry. "Have you monitored the ones who did this to my father?" she questioned, and Wintergreen was silent for a few moments before nodding from behind her. "I have, Miss Wilson. I have recorded every fight, every win or loss since your father's untimely demise," the man tells her curtly, and the girl smiles, a look of hatred on her face as she narrows her eyes on a T-shaped building in the bay. "You may have defeated my father Titans. But now—" The girl's eyes narrow further, the smile slips from her face into a scowl, dark intent lacing her gray orbs. "You must face with the Ravager," she says darkly as the wind blows her hair, covering the left side of her face from view, her voice a monotone, cold, and cruel. Just like her father. Jump City, California. X was walking down the street in his civilian clothes, a smirk on his face. His civvies consisted of a pair of loose blue jeans with a simple red t-shirt, a pair of black fingerless gloves with metal plates on the backs, a pair of black combat boots, and a black bucket hat to cover his hair and shadow his eyes, leaving only his whiskers, which were ever covered by some of his blonde hair. Ninja Lesson 1. Never let anyone notice your unusual features if you can help it. Makes it easier for those hunting you to track you. Naruto thought to himself, then turned on his heel and walked down a corner while a pair of girls looked at him before blushing and giggling, making the thief smirk. "I love this universe. I don't have to worry about spite from teams. I can steal whatever I need so long as no one sees my face, and I can even make some decent friends for a change," Naruto thought to himself as he then found the place he was looking for, a lonely little shop in the city that sold old and rare books, as well as a few more common ones. But if you wanted to find an unusual book in the city, this was the place to look. Kakashi was bored out of his mind. Everyone in the store was sitting down and reading, not even buying anything, just reading. Not to mention that cloak-wearing girl was back again today. He was still bored. Even if she did have almost ghostly tendencies to disappear or reappear out of the shadows. Most ninja had those tendencies as well anyways, so it wasn't that unusual for him. "Hey, Scarecrow!" one of his coworkers called out, making Kakashi twitch at the nickname, which he got for his normal name of Kakashi. "It's time for your break, man. I'll take over the counter." The guy, Jeff, if Kakashi remembers correctly, says, and Kakashi shrugs before walking into the back and grabbing one of the erotica books for his own personal amusement. Thus the gray-haired Konoha Nin missed a blonde walking into the building to look around for something to read. While not known to most of those who lived in Konoha, Naruto actually enjoyed reading more than he liked to talk about. His dope self didn't, because the real him had liked to read with his mom, thus gained a slight love for literature, as it reminded him of her to read. Walking around, Naruto placed a finger on the spines of the books, and noted some he might like to read before pulling one out that he hadn't seen before. Opening it and reading a little, he walked over to the seats, which lay to one side of the store, and sat down in a chair, not even noticing the blue-cloaked girl next to him that had gray skin. Naruto sat reading quietly, then felt someone staring at him and turned, only to find that none other than Raven of the Teen Titans was sitting next to him. What are the fucking odds? He couldn't help but wonder, then frowned towards her. Any reason you're staring? He questioned, and the girl looked at him strangely. People don't normally sit near me, she said simply, and Naruto glanced around without moving his head, and saw they were giving her a wide berth. Looking back at the girl, he could only wonder why. She wasn't hideous, and she certainly didn't look like she'd bite someone's head off for being near her. Maybe they were afraid of her. After all, if you were a normal person and saw someone tossing men made of solid stone with nothing but a wave of the hand, you'd probably be scared stiff too. He wasn't normal, however, so that wasn't much of a problem. Hell, QB gave him a similar ability. I'm used to hanging around odd girls, Naruto said with a shrug, mostly meaning Hinata, but also Temari, Ino, Tenten, and even Sakura. Now that he thought of it, they were pretty odd compared to the girls of this world, even Raven. The said girl raised a brow before returning to her book as Naruto did the same, however. The girl would constantly glance at him with a strange expression every now and then. Naruto chose to ignore it and let her try and figure out what he said on her own while reading his book. Time passed at a sedate pace, it seemed, Naruto just sitting back and getting into the book, until her heard a familiar voice at least. Hey Jeff, time for your break now, came the droll voice of Naruto's ex-sensei, making the blonde twitch before moving his eyes to the man, which then widened, seeing said masked man walking out of the back and to the counter while the other guy headed into the back. Oh shit. It's that lazy, no good, and pretty much worthless, asked Kakashi Baka. Wait. How the hell did he get here? Oh yeah, he and the others all followed after me. Ah shit. Does that mean Sasuke team and that bitch Sakura are here too? He wondered to himself, however. Naruto didn't notice as Raven narrowed her eyes, his stray thoughts bringing more questions to her mind about the suspicious blonde. Standing up slowly, and as casually as he could, Naruto walked over to where he found the book in his hands and put it up. Hey! Kakashi's voice came, and Naruto would have cursed had he not known it would be too troublesome, and he'd end up caught. Yeah? Naruto questioned, making his voice slightly deeper to make sure Kakashi didn't recognize him. Don't I know you? He questioned, and Naruto twitched slightly before clearing his throat. No, I don't think so. I haven't ever been in this particular store before today, Naruto answered while turning around, and Kakashi took a thoughtful look before then shrugging his shoulders. Oh, I see. Sorry, but from behind I almost thought you were a former student of mine, Kakashi said, and Raven walked to stand beside of Naruto with a raised brow. When were you a teacher? She questioned while glaring at the book in his hands, and Kakashi chuckled nervously. Never mind, sorry to keep you waiting, sir, Kakashi said, and Raven rolled her eyes as Naruto then walked out of the building, sighing at the door, and Raven placed her book back where she found it. Not buying anything today, Raven? The man questioned with an eye smile, and Raven frowned towards him before walking out of the building and after Naruto. What's eating her? Kakashi wondered before shrugging and getting back to his stupid little book. Raven walked past numerous people on the street quickly, so she wouldn't lose track of the blonde she had seen in the store. Something about him was bugging her, and it wasn't the odd thoughts that had prodded her senses earlier. It was some kind of strange feeling she got when he sat next to her, like it was kinship, like she understood him and he her somehow. Why was that? Finally spotting him, Raven sank into the ground as a shadow, only to appear in front of the blonde, who blinked before scratching the bridge of his nose. Can I help you? He asked casually, and Raven frowned once more. She still felt that weird feeling of kinship. It was starting to creep her out, feeling like you could trust a complete stranger, when normally she trusted no one at all. Yes. I was wondering. Have we met before? She asked. If she knew him from before, then that might explain the feeling. If not, she wasn't sure why she felt she could trust him. Sorry, can't say we have, and no offense, but you'd probably be pretty hard to forget, Naruto said to the girl smoothly, and Raven frowned. He was lying. She didn't know how she knew. Her senses told her he wasn't lying, but she decided it didn't matter. She lied even to her friends a great deal. Calling someone else out on one would make her a hypocrite. Then do you have a name? Raven asked, and Naruto raised a brow. Naruto, he said, and the girl blinked. That's an unusual name, she said flatly, and Naruto chuckled lightly. It actually means maelstrom and is Japanese and decent, he explained, and the girl made an O with her mouth before closing it. I'm Raven, Raven offered, and Naruto rolled his eyes. Everyone knows that, he said with a smirk, and Raven nodded her head to the blonde. That was her least favorite part of being a superhero besides the strain on her alone time. The damn paparazzi. So, if we're done here, I'd best be on my way, Naruto said, and started to walk off, only for Raven to make a black field in front of him. I never said we were done, she deadpanned, and Naruto blinked before turning around to face the girl with his arms crossed. Then would it be too much to ask that we talk somewhere a little more private? Naruto asked while motioning around, seeing as some people had stopped to try and listen in onto the exchange, making Raven twitch in annoyance. Fine. When? She asked, and Naruto looked thoughtful. I'm free Saturday, he offered. He was actually free any day, but most normal people his age worked or went to school on weekdays, so he was trying not to draw any unwanted attention to himself. Fine. Saturday, Raven said, and then discreetly nudged over to what looked like a dark little cafe. Naruto nodded his head slowly, and then Raven suddenly faded into the ground and vanished, making Naruto blink before shrugging and calmly walked away. He groaned when numerous people began to try and discreetly wonder what the exchange had been about. Today is just not my day, man, he thought to himself as he heard at least 5 people wonder if they were dating, and some wondering if he was one of the Titans out of costume. He really didn't like Mondays anymore. Sasuke Uchiha could be called many things: handsome, by his fangirls only oddly enough ambitious, by his sensei only hard-working, by the ass-kissing council members, and he is strong, possible the strongest ninja of Konoha, in his own warped mind and that of his fangirls at least. However, one thing he isn't, among many others, is patient. Sasuke Uchiha is not a patient person. Just as per Neji Hyuga was about to find out. What the hell are we sitting around for? Sasuke demanded of Neji as the Hyuga boy sat down, attempting to meditate just so he wouldn't be tempted to finish off the Uchiha line once and for all himself. Because Kakashi and myself are currently the highest-ranking nin on this mission. As such, we make the rules, and it would not be a good idea to alert the city to people with our abilities, nor would it be prudent to make enemies of its protectors. Neji explained for the millionth time today. Why did anyone ever say the Uchiha was ever a fucking genius? All he was good for was blowing things up half the time and rushed headlong into almost any fight without thought of the consequences. Sasuke gritted his teeth and sneered at Neji. They were supposed to be capturing that damn dope, not sitting the fuck around and meditating all fucking day. Sasuke began to sporadically clench his right hand, itching to draw his chakatsu and slice into Neji, then go cutting up this fucking city till the dobe came out. Shaking his head, Sasuke frowned. Even he wasn't that rash. The dobe would run if they came, just like the coward he obviously was. Sasuke then had a thought. In Konoha, they kept a list of everyone in the village and checked often for hideaways. Surely a city this advanced would have better records with their law enforcement agents. Narrowing his eyes, Sasuke turned his back on Neji and started walking to the door, only for the Hyuga to stand in his way. Where do you think you're going? Neji demanded, and Sasuke sneered. How dare this Hyuga trash make demands of him? The last of the Uchiha. I'm going to find the dobe, he said through gritted teeth, and Neji frowned. As I said earlier, we are waiting. We are not to arouse any suspicion to us as we attempt to gather information, Neji stated, and Sasuke sneered before quickly unsheathing chakatsu and pointing it at the other boy. Out of my way. I won't say it again, Sasuke said darkly, and Neji narrowed his eyes on the prick before rolling his eyes and stepping aside. That's what I thought, Sasuke said smugly and sheathed chakatsu. Neji inwardly shook his head at the younger boy's arrogance. If it wasn't for the fact he would be beheaded by the council, he'd personally knock some sense into the brat. As Sasuke left the warehouse, Neji shook his head and walked over to the center of the room to meditate and focus his chakra. I somewhat hope he gets himself killed out there tonight. At least then we wouldn't have such an arrogant team to deal with, and could focus on finding Naruto-san. Neji thought to himself while thinking of the Hokage's personal orders to him concerning Sasuke and smirked slightly. If the Uchiha shows even the slightest intent of killing Naruto, you are to execute him immediately. Naruto is more valuable to the village than he is, understood Neji? The woman had ordered and Neji's reply had been simple. Understood, Hokage-sama. Later. Naruto was bored. He'd gone around town for a while just to clear his head, and making sure that no one was following him home. So it wasn't surprising when he didn't get home till it was well past sunset. Shaking his head, the blonde reached up and pulled his white and green striped bucket hat from his head and stuck it into his pocket. I can't believe Kakashi Baka didn't recognize me, Naruto said with a laugh at Kakashi's expense while approaching his door. As soon as Naruto walked into his apartment, however, none other than Gizmo tackled him straight to the ground. Do you have any idea how long we've been looking for you, Tempest? Gizmo demanded, and Naruto sighed, then pushed the tiny terror off of him, and then stood up to wave at Mammoth. Hey guys! What's up? Naruto questioned and Gizmo growled. Jinx is fucking missing, that's what's up, dickhead! Gizmo shouted and Naruto blinked, then looked to Mammoth. Is it me or is he cursing even more than normal? He questioned and Mammoth nodded his head. Okay, thanks for the confirmation. Now what is this about Jinx going missing? Naruto said to Mammoth, then questioned only to be dragged into his apartment by Gizmo, as Mammoth then closed his door so no one would hear. Okay, a couple days ago the headmaster sent Jinx out on a job in town. Well, at first we didn't think much of it was a routine job, you know. Anyways, it's been 3 days and I'm starting to get worried. Mammoth here was worried 2 days ago, but I figured she was just running late and… Before Gizmo could continue his ramblings, his mouth was covered by Naruto's hand. The blonde's eyes narrowed. What was this mission she went on? He questioned monotonously and Mammoth answered. She went to deliver a message to some of our people on the west side. She was also supposed to bring back some of this month's haul, but… Mammoth left off and Naruto frowned angrily. Where are these guys? He questioned angrily, and Gizmo pulled his hand off of his mouth. What do you need to know that for? He asked, and Naruto glared at him. First things first, I'm going to check these guys out, they might know what happened to Jinx, Naruto said flatly, and Gizmo made an O with his mouth. On the west side in an abandoned hotel, I think the guy she went to see was in room 312 or something, he then said, and Naruto walked past Gizmo and to his room. How the hell are you going to get these guys to talk? Half of them aren't even afraid of Mammoth. Do you honestly think they're gonna be intimidated by you? The tiny terror then questioned, and Naruto turned to him, and the former nin smirked. I'm a ninja, remember? I have my ways, he said simply before walking into his room to get his chakra-powered X-suit. He was going to find Jinx, and he was going to beat the shit out of anyone who got in his way. 'Cause no one fucked with his friends as long as he had anything to say about it. Jump City, West Side. Naruto landed on a building across from the one Jinx had been last. He dressed in his new suit, though the clouds covering the moon prevent him from being seen. According to Gizmo, his suit looked somewhat like a cyborg ninja. The suit also had many new features added to it, but at the moment, Naruto was using his helmet's night vision mode and scope mode to allow him to watch the building. Watching Naruto narrowed his eyes, 2 men were on top of the building, walking around and holding simple handguns. Tilting his head downward, the blonde looked to see another guard at the door. Tilting to both sides, Naruto saw the only other guard was at the left side, leaving only the right free. Left has a fire escape, but the right is barren, foolish to leave a side unprotected. Even if it has no strategic value to you, someone else will find a use for it. Naruto thought to himself and reached over his right shoulder, touching the handle of his ninjutsu and smirking beneath his mask. A cyborg ninja indeed. The blonde then deactivated his helmet's vision functions and pressed the button on the buckle of his belt, reappearing on top of the building, his stealth camouflage online. Looking at the 2 guards, Naruto rolled his eyes before holding his palms towards them both. A brief flash of bright red light was the only warning before static X came from his palms and attached to the two men, knocking both unconscious. Naruto then flipped to the roof and walked over the two unconscious guards and to the door, slowly pulling it open as he then walked down into the building. Finding the client Gizmo had mentioned wouldn't be easy. Of course, nothing he liked to do was easy for most people, so why should this be any different? Walking down the numerous halls, Naruto saw another guard, making him frown as he then silently stalked to the man before grabbing him and putting pressure around his neck to keep him silent. He then punched the man in the skull, laying him out like the others as he then dragged the man down the hall and dumped him into a bathroom stall. Walking out, Naruto looked to one of the doors and frowned, seeing the number 512, meaning he was a good 2 floors above the guy he was supposed to be capturing. Growling in his throat, Naruto stalked to the stairs only to halt seeing someone wearing a black ski mask with a J between the eyes walking up the stairs, before stopping to sneeze. "Damn it! I caught a cold again!" The man whined and Naruto stepped aside, allowing the man to walk past him, only for him to suddenly stop. "Oh! Not again!" the man said before he stiffened, then shifted and ran down the hall towards the bathroom with his hands on his ass. Who the hell was he? Naruto wondered to himself, then walked downstairs, shaking his head after seeing the odd man. Soon coming down to the next floor, Naruto leaned back into a wall and looked down the hall to see no one around, the stairs to the next floor laying somewhere on this floor. Naruto silently walked down the hall only to stop as a door opened, a man walking out and yawning slightly. Naruto rolled his eyes and then lunged forward, quickly placing a static X onto the man to knock him out. Grabbing the man, he then dragged him back to the room he had come from and closed the door. Walking back down the hall quietly, Naruto came to a simple turn, but he leaned against the wall and then tilted himself over to look in any case, only to grimace seeing 5 guards. Grumbling, Naruto looked around and then walked over to a door and opened it. Walking out, he headed to a window and then opened it. Jumping out, Naruto placed his hands and feet along the wall and began wall crawling along it, and noted idly it was harder to focus chakra to single fingers than it was to his palm. Ignoring that thought, he slowly crawled down the wall to the 3rd floor and looked for an open window, only to scowl seeing there was none. Crawling to one, Naruto focused chakra to his fingers and then cut through one, only to reach inside and open the window. Man, I really must have been going crazy to use the suit's functions over chakra and jutsu. Though this stealth camo is fucking handy. Naruto thought, remembering almost 200 times in the past he would have loved to vanish without a trace like he could now. Stopping these thoughts, Naruto silently walked out of the room and checked the number. 320. 8 doors down. Naruto thought to himself and slowly crept down the hall, then saw a guard in front of the door he was heading towards. Narrowing his eyes, Naruto watched the man, then looked down a second hall to his right and cursed seeing another guard heading his way. Growling in his throat, Naruto held a hand towards each of the men and fired a static X from each, the 2 weapons sailing through the air to hit both men and knock them out like the ones before. Leaving these guys to lie out, Naruto walked towards the door where the guy was supposed to be. However, he raised a brow. There wasn't a door. In fact, the numbers seemed to skip 312. Narrowing his eyes, Naruto then placed his ear onto the door. Though his helmet covered his ears, it had very sensitive microphones in it. He heard someone walking around and thus stood up and deactivated his camo before reaching back and unsheathing his ninjutsu. The blonde-haired thief then sliced into the wall and literally carved out a new door, causing the man beyond to look towards the door in shock and fear. Naruto then tossed an extra-ken at the light of the room, turning it off, and activated his thermal vision, thus making the eyes of his helmet glow a fearsome red color. Naruto saw the man and watched as he screamed and ran to an adjacent room, making the thief narrow his eyes and sheath his sword. Walking towards the room, Naruto used his chakra to form numerous blades of wind around him, which began to spin rapidly. This was an advanced wind jutsu he made to replace his Makukaten, though he had only finished it recently. It was basically hundreds of wind scythes spinning around his body and tearing anything that came towards him into pieces. And seeing the numerous bullets heading his way, he was glad he had. Hearing the click of an empty gun, Naruto lunged forward and lifted the man up by the throat, glaring at him with glowing red eyes. "Where is my friend?" Naruto demanded of the man angrily, his vocal synthesizer sounding different than his old X-suits, giving him a raspy metallic voice like Red had. The man in his hand just shouted that he wouldn't get away with this, nor would he talk, and X grinned behind his mask. Oh really now? He questioned darkly, then walked over to a window and kicked it out while his thermal vision deactivated to allow him to see normally. Let's see if we can't loosen up that tongue of yours, Naruto then declared as he jumped out of the building and teleported to a much taller building a short ways from the first building. What are you going to do? The man in his grasp stuttered, and Naruto walked over to the side of the building and looked down. The man seemed to go wide-eyed at this and gulped. Are you one of the Batman students or something? He questioned, and Naruto shook his head no, making the man sigh in relief. At least until Naruto held him out over the edge of the building. What the hell do you want? The man demanded, and Naruto narrowed his eyes behind his mask. My friend Jinx. Where is she? Naruto demanded, and the man shook his head from side to side rapidly. I don't know, the man shouted, and Naruto let out a sigh. Too bad, he then stated, and dropped the man down the building before then pressing his teleport button to appear on the side of the building and grabbed the man by his leg. Alright. A couple days ago that pink-haired chick came by, but we didn't have what we were supposed to give her. So we called a cop who owed us and had him come and arrest her. The man admitted, and Naruto wanted to drop the guy for doing that to his friend. Fortunately for the prick, he wasn't a killer. You are so lucky I'm not an assassin, Naruto growled before then dodging as a red and yellow birdarang came at him from nowhere and cut into the man's pants, before then holding them to the wall. Great! The kids are here, Naruto mutters under his breath as he sees Robin on a nearby streetlight. The thief growls before then releasing the man in his grasp and watched as Raven came out of the shadows to catch him. Naruto narrowed his eyes at this as then he heard a screech of tires and turned to see the infamous T-car slide to a stop nearby and Starfire flying down. How the hell do these kids always manage to get in the way? Flipping off the side off the building, Naruto landed on the ground and then turned to glare at Robin as he and the other Titans came together. I don't know who you think you are, pal, but I don't like your style, Robin said angrily to the thief, who simply looked at the Titans with a frown. I don't rightly care, kid. I've got more important matters to attend to other than being your babysitter for the night, Naruto said and stood up to his full height only to unsheath his sword. So stay out of my way, or else I'll have to beat you into the ground, Naruto growled as he finally stepped into the light to reveal himself, ironically getting a gasp from Starfire once more and gaping jaws from the others. The figure standing before them was Red X, however, he had changed. His mask was different, the skull was still white with a red X over the right eye, but the two teeth on the outside looked like fangs while the two inner ones were normal, and its eyes were a dark gray, making the sockets look almost empty while the rest of it was black with an almost metallic look to it. A pitch black, single-edged short sword rested in his right hand, the light from the T-car's lights glinting along its length. The suit he wore was black as midnight, with a large jagged red X over the chest, a ash-gray belt synced around his waist identical to his old one save the circular buckle with the red X on it. A kunai case was strapped to his right thigh, gray material forming the band around his leg. Gray gloves covered his hands, but had black fingers and a red X on the palm. Black vambrace covered his forearms and the backs of his hands, a red X placed on the back of the fist. Over his feet were black boots, with thin gray soles and gray around the toes and heels, black greaves covering his shins, knees, and the tops of his feet. On his shoulder was a pair of black shoulder pads, with smaller pads coming down from them over his biceps, with several straps crossing over his back making an X, allowing the shoulder gear to hold on tightly, and also allowing him to sink his sword sheath to his back. Looking at the shocked looks of the Titans, Naruto grinned beneath his mask, only to frown when he remembered why he was even out. Swinging his sword, he rested the blunt side of the blade against his shoulders and clenched his left fist, small spikes coming from the knuckles of his left vambrace to spark with electricity. What's the matter, kid? X questioned of Robin darkly, then lowered his voice, making his synthesizer do the same. You look like you've just seen a ghost. Jump City Police Station. How many times are you gonna get brought here before you finally stop all the petty theft? A police officer grumbled towards Jinx while handing her an apple. Same time you stop playing around with these idiotic JPD cops, you're a better cop than half these guys. She countered, and the man grumbled under his breath angrily. Unlike the other police officers, this man didn't wear a helmet. Instead, he had on a pair of sunglasses with his short brown hair and a slight bit of unshaven whiskers on his face, making him look scruffy. Bah, what's a kid like you know about being a police officer? The man countered, and Jinx gave a shrug. She couldn't technically argue with that point. Sitting back in the seat of the interrogation room, Jinx wondered why Officer Connors, the man sitting in front of her and an old friend, had gotten a transfer to Jump City. Sure, he had been stationed in Detroit, a town most heroes steered clear of, because of all the crime there, but the old guy had always kept up the good fight. So why'd you transfer? I doubt anyone in town wanted that, Jinx said, and the old guy grunted under his breath, then pulled out a cigarette and lit it. I thought the cops here didn't allow you to smoke, she said with a smirk, and the man looked at her with a frown, before lifting one hand and flipping her off. Oh yeah, won't those also kill you from lung cancer or something? The girl then asked with another grin as Connor's eyes turned to her, then placed his cigarette fully in his mouth before lifting his other hand to give her 2 birds. Same old Officer Connors, the girl said with a grin and a mock salute to the man who grunted and then took a long drag from his cig before then leaning back in his own seat and resting his boots onto the table before them. I decided I needed a change of scenery. That's why I left, the brown-haired man told the girl simply while looking to the ceiling, and she gave him a look before shrugging and biting into the apple. You remembered I like the sour ones? She asked with a raised brow, making the older man grunt. You don't practically raise a crazy psycho chick with control over bad luck without remembering a couple things. He grunted, making Jinx snicker into her hands as he took another drag on his cigarette. You never changed, you old guy. And unless I'm mistaken, Officer Connors, you didn't raise me. I was an orphan, who didn't like the orphanage. You just happened to keep trying to take me back. And keep me from blowing things up, the girl said with a grin, and Connors grunted once more before giving her an annoyed look. I might as well have raised you. I was probably the only adult you even partly respected, Connors stated, and Jinx grinned at him. True, she said happily, making Connors groan, then looked at her again. Now I hear you're having some kind of a feud with those Titan kids. What's that all about? Connors asked, and Jinx scoffed, crossing her arms as she took a quick bite of her apple and swallowed. It was our first job as graduates for this Slade guy, she started to explain, while Officer Connors just sat back and nodded his head to the girl while listening and smoking his cigarette. Meanwhile, outside, a familiar dark-haired young man walked towards the building, a sword sheathed at his lower back and face formed into a scowl. He wore a black sleeveless kimono top, bandages wrapped around his waist, with a Konoha hideout secured around his forehead, a pair of loose black pants, with a dark blue cloth wrapped around his waist, a purple rope tied to his waist to hold it, and his sword sheath on. Over his forearms is a pair of black gloves, which leave his fingers and palms bare. A pair of sandals cover his feet with black leg warmers over his shins and calves. Walking past some policemen, he went inside, the men giving him odd looks as they walked past him, though he didn't see it when they did. The boy walked into the police station, brushing past many of the men who grumbled about stupid brats. Sasuke walked to the desk of this place and stared at the man behind it, seeming to be doing paperwork before then looking at him and raising a brow. What the hell are you supposed to be, kid? He questioned, and Sasuke twitched angrily. Didn't this fucking moron know who he was? I need the records of incoming individuals for the past year, Sasuke said simply, and the man behind the desk raised a brow. We don't have no records of incoming people, kid. There's too fucking many for that kind of shit, the man said rudely, and Sasuke twitched. Were these people fucking with him? What kind of fool doesn't make sure that their enemies aren't trying to enter into their city? Glaring at the man, he narrowed his eyes. Perhaps he was lying. Perhaps he was trying to keep him from what he wanted. Narrowing his eyes, Sasuke decided he didn't like that idea and slowly reached for his Shield Chakatsu. Elsewhere. Dude, Red X got an upgrade. He looks like something out of Cyborg Shinobi Chronicles, Beast Boy exclaimed, then grinned, while everyone else gawked at the new Red XS form. Awesome! BB then exclaimed, only to get glares from his friends, making the green teen feel like an idiot yet again. However, Naruto wasn't so amused, seeing as he was kind of busy at the moment. Normally he wouldn't mind playing around with the kids some, but right now Jinx needed him. Sorry kids, but I can't hang out with you all night. I've got more important matters to attend, X said darkly as he flipped his ninjutsu. Now holding it backhanded, he lunged at the Titans before they even knew he had moved. He immediately slammed the pommel of his sword into Robin's gut, knocking the wind from him as the thief then used a roundhouse kick to send the younger teen flying away. Naruto then flipped out of the way as a sonic beam headed straight for him, and sheathed his ninjutsu. The teen then held out his right hand and disappeared, only to then reappear in front of Cyborg, a swirling sphere of chakra in his right hand. Rasengan! He exclaimed, slamming his attack into Cyborg's gut, sending the titanium teen flying back and through a building. At that moment Raven lifted a pair of cars and tossed them at the thief, only for him to wink out of existence and reappear in the air spinning. The thief threw an X at the girl, which quickly wrapped around her face, covering her mouth and making the girl's eye twitch as she then tried to rip it off. At that moment BB lunged at Naruto as a large gorilla, swinging his arms down to slam into the thief. However, this was thwarted when the thief vanished from his sights. The masked thief then appeared behind Beast Boy. The green ape turned only for Naruto to lash out with an electrically enhanced punch to the rib cage. BB's first stood on end from the quick shock, only for Naruto to then appear in front of him and punch him straight in the gut, knocking the wind from him, then lift both fists into an uppercut that sent the large ape falling back. Naruto then had to flip backwards as Starfire came flying forward, flinging her starbolts towards the masked thief. Naruto soon came to a wall and placed both feet onto it, and leapt straight towards Starfire, who used her eye beams, only for the thief to vanish then appear behind her. The girl turned her head to look at the thief wide-eyed as he then kicked out at Starfire, his kicks enhanced with electricity like his fists. The girl was quickly assaulted by numerous kicks from Naruto, before the thief then used an axe kick on her back and sent her sailing into the ground as he then rolled into a spin before hitting the ground, leaving only a surprised Raven coherent enough to watch him. I thought already told you. I don't have time to play with you kids today, Naruto said darkly as Robin struggled to get to his feet. The thief then stopped as he heard the static of his police scanner placed a hand to his right ear. Somebody! This is the JCPD, we need help down here, there's some guy down here with a sword tearing up the station. If anyone can hear this, please he. Oh. The message came to a halt with that scream and static, making Naruto's eyes widen. Jinx! He thought, then crouched and jumped up, teleporting as he did so and flying off away from the Titans as they all tried to get up. Dude, is it just me? Or did we just get our butts kicked? BB questioned as he got up and rubbed his head, Robin gritting his teeth at the younger boy's words. The only one who didn't disagree was Raven, and the girl was still trying to get the damn X off of her mouth so she could use her powers. Jump City Police Department. Shit! Officer Connors said, his sunglasses now gone, as he and Jinx both sit crouched behind an overturned table, the older man holding a modified M1911A1 in one hand and a combat knife in the other. Does this guy happen to be a friend of yours? He then questioned of Jinx, and the pink-haired girl shook her head rapidly as another body was tossed their way, slamming into the table they had taken refuge against. Great, that's even worse. He grunted out and took a quick peek out from behind the table towards the intruder. The teen had spiky black hair reminiscent of Robin's, loose-fitting, almost Japanese-looking clothes, and a long, straight, single-edged sword. A Chakatsu. Not really a good sword, takes too long to draw from the sheath. Officer Connors thought to himself, then looked to Jinx. I want you to get out of here, I'll distract Spiky over there, he ordered, and Jinx gaped at him. Are you fucking crazy, old-timer? She questioned with a hushed tone. That maniac over there will tear you to shreds, she said with a worried look, and Officer Connors merely grunted, then looked back over the table as Sasuke walked into a hall. Perfect, that hall should be too narrow for him to use his sword. If I can get him up close, I won't have to worry about that blade. But I still don't know what else he can do, the man thought to himself, blue eyes narrowing as he then looked at Jinx. 1. My name isn't old guy, old timer, old man, or anything with old in it. It's Jack. 2. Get the fuck out of here before I knock you out and carry your ass out of here. Jack growled at the girl and Jinx glared at him, huffed, then let out her breath and crossed her arms. Just don't get killed, she said before then rushing off in the other direction as Jack frowned and looked back to the hallway. I'll try my best, kid. I'll try my best, he thought, then took hold of his gun and knife at the same time, and rushed past his downed comrades in a crouch, holding the 2 weapons in front of him. Looking down the hall, Sasuke had gone down. Jack grimaced, blood and bodies lay to either side, and looking down, Jack cursed lightly and placed his back against the side of the door, seeing Sasuke already at the other end of the hall, holding one of the other officers up with his sword. The black-haired teen then tossed the officer off his blade, making him hit the side of the hall, leaving a dent behind as Sasuke quickly turned and sliced the mechanism holding the door shut before walking in at a sedate pace. Man, this kid really needs to learn the concept of stealth, Jack said to himself before rushing down the hall past his fellow officers and towards Sasuke. Meanwhile, with Jinx, the pink-haired girl ran out of the building, grimacing whenever she saw an especially gruesome corpse. As she ran, she soon saw the exit and let out a sigh of relief, quickly running to it only to collide with someone. Cammy! Came a synthesized voice, and Jinx looked down to see Red X, whom Gizmo said was actually Tempest, and with Tempest's sword on his back that made sense. Tempest! Jinx said happily, hugging a surprised thief, and then grabbed him by the shoulders. We have to go back inside. Officer Connors is in trouble, she said quickly, confusing the blonde, who then let out a sigh before placing his hand on her mouth. Alright, I'll pull my hand off as soon as you calm the fuck down, Jinx, he said, and Jinx started to breathe much more slowly, and X removed his hand from her face. Alright, now tell me what the hell has got you so worked up? Naruto questioned of the girl, who then nodded her head to the older teen. You see, I was an orphan, but I kept running away when I was younger, and there was always this cop back home who would keep trying to take me back to the orphanage. He was probably the only good influence I had, and even then he's not quite the best of the best, he's just always looked out for me, Jinx said, and Naruto had a brief vision of Irika in his head, seeing as that sounded like this. Officer Connors was Jinx's Irika. And now this psycho with spiky black hair is tearing the police station apart, and Officer Connors is trying to stall him so I can get away, the girl said quickly, and Naruto narrowed his eyes on the building, and then turned his head to look at the pink-haired girl. Don't worry. I'll go save him. You head on back to yours and Mammoth and Gizmo's place, Naruto said, then gently pushed Jinx off of himself and ran into the building, and narrowed his eyes, seeing all the bodies around the place. Whoever this psycho is, he's really got to practice on his stealth. The fucking idiot will have everyone in the damn country after him for this, Naruto thought to himself as he passed the numerous guards and ran in the direction of the carnage. Back with Jack, the man was not having a good time. He and the black-haired kid were in the file room, many of the file cabinets having been sliced into pieces by an irate teen that couldn't seem to read any of them. This had led to him attacking anything that moved, which unfortunately included Jack himself. Damn it! He exclaimed, rolling out of the way of the dark-haired teen's Chakatu and firing his gun at the boy, who used his sword to deflect the bullets. The older man growled and rolled to the side as the dark-haired teen lunged at him once more, swinging his Chakatu towards the man only to miss. You're better than the rest of these losers, I'll give you that much, but you still don't stand a chance against an elite Uchiha, Sasuke said smugly, making Jack groan to himself, wondering what kind of place this egomaniac lived in. Sasuke then lunged at Jack, who calmed his breathing and used his knife to connect with the Chakatu at its hilt, then slammed his fist into Sasuke's face before then punching him with the other arm. Grabbing him by the hair, he then slammed the punk's face into one of the only standing file cabinets. Don't get too cocky, the moment you underestimate an opponent is the moment you lose, Jack said to Sasuke, aiming his gun towards the Uchiha's head only for him to then spin his legs to kick the gun out of his hands and take a swing at Jack. The man cursed and flipped backwards, blood pouring from his forehead from a light cut. Quickly wiping the blood away, Jack cursed and ducked to the side as Sasuke swung his sword at him once more. Blood quickly poured down from the wound on Jack's head, however, and the man quickly rolled to a sheet and ripped a long strip from the gray cloth. He then began wrapping it over his head, before tying it in the back of his head, and wiping the blood from his eyes once more, the ends of the cloth hanging down to his shoulder blades. Dodging Sasuke's chakatu once more, Jack noticed the teen seemed more annoyed he was dodging than anything. Something tells me this kid hasn't lost enough fights to know the meaning of humility. Jack thought to himself, then rolled along the floor and grabbed his gun, aiming it at the Uchiha once more, the boy glaring at him with a snarl on his lips. Inu, Akuma, Yasagi, Hibi, Ukami, Tori, Tanuki, Haku, Taka, Itachi, Mangasu, Kitsune, Yama, Tori, Inu, Taka, Nico, Karasu, Hoshi, Hige, Kuma, Saru, Nazumi. A robotic voice chanted as a shimmer of some kind came from nowhere and blocked the spiky-haired boy's chakatu with a sword of its own. What the hell? Jack questioned as the shimmer then took shape of some kind of cyborg ninja. The man then watched as the ninja swung its own sword, knocking the samurai wannabe off balance before then kicking him in the chest and sending him flying back into a wall. Quickly regaining his senses, the man aimed his gun towards the ninja, which turned its head to reveal a white skull with a red X curving down one eye. Who the hell are you? He demanded and received silence. Answer me! He demanded once more while pointing the gun towards the sword-wielding ninja. Neither enemy nor friend, the ninja finally said and looked towards Sasuke, the boy getting back to his feet and glaring at the black-clad warrior. Is this some kind of umbu? Humph, if it is he'll know what I want. Sasuke thought to himself, then pointed his sword towards the skull-masked thief. Are you an umbu? He questioned, yet received silence as his answer, making him grit his teeth in anger. I asked you a question, you low-level scum! Are you an umbu for this city or not? Sasuke demanded, and the thief let out a low chuckle. No. I am a ghost from another world. With that, Naruto flipped his ninjutsu to be held backhanded, and crouched down into a stance. Sasuke raised a brow at this, then activated his Sharingan, smirking as he watched the strange umbu. Fine then, Dekiro, let's see what the umbu of this strange world can do. With that, the spiky-haired boy lunged at Naruto, swinging his chakatu only for him to vanish in a shimmer of light. What the? Sasuke questioned, only to be kicked from behind and sent sprawling forward. It seems like I'm going to have to take you down a few pegs, Naruto said darkly, while Jack just watched the two with growing confusion, then ducked behind something so he could watch, but wouldn't get between them. Sasuke then got back to his feet and glared at the umbu before him with anger before lunging at him with a roar, only for him to vanish once more and then appear above him and use a dropkick. Sasuke punched the ground, then flipped back to his feet once more and lunged at the masked thief, swinging his chakatu at him wildly. Naruto blocked each strike easily, smirking, as the Sharingan wasn't working thanks to the blonde's mask keeping him from using any illusions. Naruto then ducked quickly to the side while sticking a foot out, tripping Sasuke and sending him tumbling forward into a wall with a grunt. Catch me if you can! Naruto then exclaimed in his synthesized voice, jumping up to then activate his 1,000 Blades Jutsu. The thousands of wind-like blades cut open the roof without him having to move his own sword even once. Sasuke gritted his teeth at this and lunged up after the thief, finding himself in the computer section of the station. Come out, you coward, and face me like a man! Sasuke suddenly exclaimed, only for the thief to appear before him and slam his hand into his face, sending him reeling back into the hole and to the ground below with an audible groan. Naruto chuckled at this and watched as Sasuke got up, holding his back and grimacing in pain the whole time. Come on, kid! X marks the spot. Naruto mocked while pointing to the X on his chest, and Sasuke snarled before then crouching down and lunging at the thief, who then used his ninjutsu to block Sasuke's chakatu. You've really got to lighten up, Chuckles, Naruto said humorously to Sasuke, who roared, swinging chakatu wildly while Naruto dodged it with ease, smirking at the dark-haired boy's temper problems. Hold still, damn you! Sasuke roared at the thief, who then grabbed Sasuke's right arm, swung his right leg to knock Sasuke off his feet, then turned to judo toss Sasuke into a table with a computer on it, sending sparks flying everywhere. Sasuke then stood up, painting and looking to his sword, then sheathed the blade. Naruto grinned, chuckling as he then moved his arm and sheathed his own blade. "Good, now we can fight as warriors," Naruto said while taking a stance, remembering the words of Red. "Hand to hand is the basis of all combat. Only a fool would trust his life to a weapon." With that, Naruto and Sasuke lunged forward and each threw a punch at the other, both connecting and sending them flying back. Naruto flipped to land on his hands and feet, while Sasuke landed in a crouch. The two stared one another down before then lunging at one another once more. Naruto ducked under the punch from Sasuke and swung his leg into a kick. This was blocked by the dark-haired Uchiha, who then pushed the leg to the side, making Naruto spin his body into a flip in order to stay on balance. The two slowly got back to their feet after this, and Sasuke narrowed his eyes. "Somehow, this seems familiar. Like I recognize that punch?" Sasuke thought to himself, then watched as the thief then flipped backwards, before then lunging out of a window. The dark-haired Uchiha mumbled a curse before following after the thief, lunging out of the window and after the black-clad boy. He saw him on a roof and quickly ran up the side of the building and onto the roof, glaring towards him angrily. Sasuke then watched as the thief made a "come on" motion with one hand and gritted his teeth. "I'll do better than that," Sasuke snarled in his mind and made several hand seals before forming the tiger seal and in taking a deep breath. "Katan, Hosenka no Jutsu!" he exclaimed as numerous fireballs flew from his mouth and towards the thief, who inwardly cursed. "Shit, Sasuke team, this is a highly populated area, what the hell are you thinking?" The masked blonde wondered, then flipped around the small fireballs, before then vanishing and appearing beside of Sasuke, plunging his fist into the other boy's face and sending him flying off to the side. "I have to get the team out of here, away from any innocents," Naruto then thought and looked towards the bay. Nodding to himself, he headed in that direction and heard Sasuke roar as he followed after the blonde. "Come on team, that's it, follow me, you baka. I'll really cut loose when we get away from people," the blonde-haired thief thought to himself with a smirk, as he evaded a couple kunai and shuriken thrown by the Uchiha brat. Elsewhere, the Titans walked into the JCPD building with pure horror written on their faces. "Who the hell did this? X?" Cyborg asked as a man walked from one room, shaking his head slightly, then looked at the Titans and blinked. "What took you so long?" he asked, and BB snickered, making the rest of the team glare at him once more to shut him up. "Sir, who did this?" Robin questioned while motioning to the carnage of bodies strewn throughout the building. "Some fucking black-haired kid in robes with a chaka to handy. That's who." The brown-haired man grunted, then sat down and pulled a cigarette from one of his pockets, then grabbed a lighter and lit it in his mouth. "He anyone you know?" Jack then questioned, and Robin frowned before shaking his head no. "Dude, so X didn't do any of this?" BB questioned, and Jack frowned. "You mean that ninja freak with the skull mask?" he asked, and Robin immediately nodded his head. "He was the one who got the sword guy to leave," Jack said, and Robin frowned to himself, then took a thoughtful expression. "They were working together?" he asked, and Jack scoffed. "No, they were fighting, dipshit. They really didn't seem to like each other," Jack said, then mumbled while taking a long drag from his cigarette, and Robin took a thoughtful expression. "All right, we're going to split up. Beast Boy, Cyborg, Starfire, you stay here and help." Looking to Jack for a name, the man rolled his eyes. "Officer Jack Connors," he said simply, and Robin nodded his head. "Help Officer Connors here and see if anyone else around here survived. Raven, you're going to go looking for X while I go looking for this sword-wielding maniac," Robin ordered, and Raven grimaced before then vanishing into the shadows. Robin then raced out of the building and onto his R-cycle while Connors grumbled under his breath. With Raven appeared in the skies over Jump City, looking around for the wandering thief known as Red X when she spotted fire and flew towards it. She then saw X and their mystery sword-wielding maniac. The two were in pitched combat, and the girl could see why Officer Connors said they didn't seem to like one another. The one with the robes was breathing fire, however, and Raven was fairly certain that wasn't a metahuman power, especially considering she could sense it. So moving in closer, Raven decided to watch the two and tried to figure out how they were controlling the elements themselves. Naruto blocked a right hook from Sasuke. The boy was beginning to be annoying. It was obvious to the blonde that while he might have gotten a little rusty, Sasuke's skills had stagnated without a challenge. So the blonde was more than his equal at this point, and thus was easily avoiding the attacks. Don't get cocky, Naruto. Remember that Sasuke team still has that damn curse seal of his. Naruto thought to himself, then flipped backwards as Sasuke punched towards him, hitting the ground instead as a black-clad thief flipped back, off of the building they were on and to the docks below. Sasuke followed the thief and threw numerous punches and kicks at him, and the skull-masked warrior was blocking all of them easily, raising Sasuke's ire. The dark-haired youth could swear he had seen this style before, however, like he knew the person behind that mask. But Sasuke didn't pay any attention to that. Instead, he lunged at the skull-masked warrior, throwing another punch only for his arm to be grabbed and his body flipped backwards into the bay. Naruto then followed after Sasuke, the masked thief smirking to himself as he then lunged forward, plowing his fist into Sasuke's face once more and sending him flying back. The thief then crouched down as Sasuke flipped up and formed a few more familiar hand seals. Katon, Gakaki no Jutsu! The Uchiha brat called, launching a massive ball of flames towards the black-clad thief. However, Naruto quickly jumped into the air and used his chakra to manipulate wind once more, creating a vacuum to stop the flames and put them out. Landing to see a gaping Sasuke, Naruto then lunged forward and ducked down before kicking the Uchiha brat into the air. Flipping to his feet quickly, Naruto then launched himself into the air and delivered a dropkick to the Uchiha's back, sending him flying back down into the water, making a massive splash. Naruto then landed. With a slight panting breath, he looked to the water as Sasuke pulled himself back up, Raven watching nearby with wide eyes at the abilities of the two warriors. Yes. I remember that! Sasuke then exclaimed before laughing loudly. I remember this feeling. This tension. He then said and quickly formed several hand seals. Naruto! He exclaimed angrily as a familiar ball of lightning formed in his left hand. Naruto was about to prepare to dodge the attack when he noticed a presence behind him and saw Raven a distance away. Cursing lightly, Naruto knew he couldn't move. There was too great a possibility that if he were to dodge, Sasuke would hit her instead. Gritting his teeth, Naruto held his hand out to the side and narrowed his eyes on Sasuke. Quickly forming a Kage Bunshin, Naruto held his right hand to the side and let it form a swirling sphere of energy into his hand. If I can't win this without someone dying, then I guess we'll both just have to settle for a draw this time, Sasuke. Naruto thought to himself as the clone then dispelled itself. Sasuke then lunged forward with an almost psychotic look to his eyes, and Naruto lunged forward also. Chidori! Udama Rasengan! The two exclaimed at the same time as their most powerful attacks hit one another, and Raven had to shield herself as a burst of power expanded from the two combatants. She was still able to see beyond her shield, but what she saw was beyond any power she had ever seen two mere humans use before. Black as midnight, a sphere, a shell of power was rapidly expanding itself, white glowing lines slowly covering the sphere as it grew until it exploded and Raven was sent flying back in her shield. Raven soon found the sphere of power had dissipated, and looked around, only to feel her eyes widen, seeing as the water in the bay had been moved to form a sphere in the ground, only it was now filling back up. Looking around, Raven saw something floating in the water and flew down towards it. Reaching a hand down, she pulled Red X out of the water and onto a black platform made from her own energy. Looking down on him, she noticed a crack in his helmet, only for her eyes to widen as red energy suddenly leaked into the crack and it slowly sealed shut. Was that a demonic aura? The girl wondered to herself, only to shake the thought off and then look towards the tower, then back down at X. If anything we need to know about that sword-wielding maniac, if and when he comes back. The girl reasoned, then flew towards the tower with Red X as her passenger/prisoner. Meanwhile, Sasuke was laying face first on the ground, hidden near a warehouse and unable to move. So you found him? Came the voice of Neji as the Hyuga walked towards Sasuke, who gave a weak smirk towards him. Neji looked at the Uchiha and frowned at him. And you've alerted our presence to the authorities and protectors of this city. Neji said, and Sasuke glared at the Hyuga. Wasn't it enough that he'd found Naruto? What did it matter if a few weaklings knew they were around? And no doubt now they're going to be hunting you down for murdering their comrades. Foolish, Neji said, and Sasuke once more gritted his teeth and glared at the Hyuga. Neji then moved quickly, grabbed Sasuke and slammed him up against the wall forcefully. Narrowing his eyes on the Uchiha, he then kneed him in the stomach and let him drop back to the ground holding his midsection. Our orders are to bring back Naruto, alive and unharmed Uchiha, Neji then said before kicking Sasuke in the side and into a wall, making the brat grunt in pain as Neji then shook his head. And should you, or anyone else in this team attempt to kill Naruto, I am to eliminate you with extreme prejudice, Neji said darkly, making Sasuke glare at him. And if you think being the last of the Uchiha will get you off this time, Sasuke, you're dead wrong. These orders come from the Hokage herself. And though the council thinks otherwise, the Hokage's word is law in the village. Not theirs, Neji said darkly before grabbing Sasuke by the hair and lifting him up. So stay in line, or I'll put you in your place. Permanently, Neji said darkly before slamming Sasuke's head into a wall, knocking the Uchiha out cold as he then took hold of his leg and dragged him off, back towards home. In a dark room in an unknown place, a single slate gray eye opens to look at a screen showing Naruto fighting the Titans in his X-suit, the fight between Naruto and Sasuke, Sasuke being carried off by Neji, and Naruto to Titan's tower. Truly amazing power. The voice is feminine, yet cold and calculating, the eye is trained into a deadly glare onto the screen before her, her form shadowed in darkness. One with godlike power over the wind, the other holds power over fire and lightning at a lesser scale. Truly amazing, the girl said darkly while looking at a freeze frame of the two warriors side by side. The dark-haired one is physically powerful. However, he seems a tad too arrogant. Also, he is rash and obviously doesn't think past a few brief moments. The other, however, has shown himself to be highly intellectual, thinking things through until the end. Like the first one, this Red X is physically capable of assisting me. However, he also seems to have a tad too many morals. The girl deduced, then laced her fingers before herself and narrowed her eye. What would father do? She questioned of no one, clockwork gears churning in the background till her eye closed and a light chuckle escaped her throat. Of course. The rash one wouldn't make a good heir for father, but this Red X would. But the rash one would make for an interesting pawn, the girl said to herself. Then the screens shut off, blanketing the room in shadows and hiding the girl from view. Chapter end.
Now watch daily exclusive uncensored lemon stories and mature content, along with NSFW images, featuring harem girls characters from the fics. Access all this and more on my Patreon. Click the link in the description to explore.